Greetings, my fellow intellectuals and bookworms. It's time for another piece of content that I'll be releasing for you today. I'll be doing a lot since, if you've watched my other video, which I recently released, I have the weekend off from college because of President's Day and shit. So, weapons in the apocalypse. Now, most advice on this is hilariously wrong, or at least misinformed. There's plenty of myths. Myth 1. It doesn't matter what type of weapon you have because you can make a weapon out of practically anything. First of all, the logic goes something like this. A Navy SEAL can kill a guy with a pencil, so therefore you should be able to do so if your house is being attacked by burglars in the apocalypse. And yes, there's going to be gangs of roving looters and so on that's going to be a problem. But he's been trained for years to know how to do that. You don't. You're probably going to get your ass killed. And so I'm going to be reviewing different weapons classes. And I'm going to lump them together because there's a lot of things that can be used as a weapon or are designed to be used as a weapon. Baseball bat. Now, quite obvious and related wooden implements. For example, a hockey stick, a curling stick, shit like that. Honestly, yeah, it could work pretty well in terms of throwing a hit, but honestly, all you need is to have one guy who's semi-competent with a firearm. Boom, you're dead. Shot in the heart. So, also, it's pretty much going to shatter on impact. So fuck you if you want to try using it again. So, martial arts weapons. Anything that you can get for like taekwondo, karate, shit like that is not designed to actually be used in an actual fight. Some of these are completely illegal to possess anywhere but, for example, to have out in public anywhere except a studio like that. Like nunchucks are not allowed out in public except to studios, except to registered martial arts studios in the US. So it doesn't do you much good if the day things start collapsing, you get arrested and thrown in a prison and presumably abandoned there when the police force strain to limit collapses. So those weapons are just not going to be effective. You're more likely to hurt yourself. Even someone who, like me, who has some idea of what he's doing because he's taking taekwondo and has an instructor showing him, it's still decently easy to hurt yourself with nunchucks. You're more likely to hurt yourself than you are to hurt others. And now, let's look at another popular misconception. You should get a medieval weapon, or some sort of historical weapon. If it worked well in the past, it'll work well now. The idea is basically, a blade doesn't need to be reloaded and can never run dry. The problem is most medieval weapons worked well for their time, but now are complete shit. There's a reason why people don't go around bringing swords to gunfights. And things like a morning flail, yes, that can kill with the spiky ball on the chain, can kill someone if it hits them in the head. The problem is, even with skilled people, for every one enemy killed throughout history, at least 2 or 3 unfortunate knights managed to kill themselves with the thing. And you're not an expert, and it's not worth the time to actually invest in becoming an expert. Now, there might be an exception. There is one major exception to this rule. Most blades that you can buy, so-called medieval blades for sale, are replica ones, designed for shit like Renaissance fairs. Maybe a movie in which it's just good enough if it doesn't fall apart. It just needs to be able to throw a hit, not even inflict one. So most of them being sold out there are shit. And if you can't find an actual sword from the 1500s, which are going to be fucking hard as fuck to find to begin with unless you're a very wealthy collector, they're going to be available for $100,000 or more. And it's just not worth the effort. Now, the one exception I can think of is a katana or a samurai blade from Japan. And honestly, those are even harder to find. To get a good replica from Japan, you can buy one for $50. It's made out of rolled steel in much the same way, but since it's not from the time, it's not worth as much. It's the kind that goes on your wall, so in terms of combat, it's kind of questionable. At which point, you're better off just getting a real one, which again, $20,000. So it basically means that literally everything's better than that. Most homemade weapons will fall apart or won't serve their intended function more than one use. Now, if you're backed against a corner and you don't have shit that you can use, it's probably better than nothing, but that's not saying much. Another thing that people seem to like is pocket knives. They're good they have the multi-tool, they can cut open, they can open cans and shit like that, right? But the blades are not exactly sharp. They're not exactly meant to be cut. So in general, in terms of blades, you have two things that are acceptable. A combat knife, also known as a hunting knife, for example, the Kabar knife of the U.S. military, which is about 12 or so inches and can actually kill someone with it. Again, maybe $100, well worth it. One of the few weapons you should actually own for the apocalypse. But in a pinch, you can loot one from your local sporting goods store. And obviously a machete, if only because it's intimidating as fuck and it's useful for cutting almost anything. Now, there's another misconception. You want to get the biggest, baddest gun possible. For example, it would be practical to wield a flamethrower or a rocket-propelled grenade launcher if you could get them. Most weapons that you can get from a military arsenal or police arsenal are either too impractical as fuck to use or too hard to use, meaning that only highly trained military or policemen can use them. So you're honestly more likely to hurt yourself. Now, in general, using a gun is not hard even if you don't have any practice, but the recoil could result in you accidentally shooting or killing yourself. So your best bet is to get something like a Beretta or a Glock. Both are small handguns, 6-round magazine, very easy to find, sold in hunting goods stores in the U.S. And if you're not in the U.S., well, I'm sorry, it's going to be almost impossible. If you're in Britain, it's almost impossible to find a gun except illegally. There's a reason why this one person was able to kill 4 people with a knife on a rampage on a subway before getting stopped, because even their police don't have guns. 2 policemen were killed as a result. But in the U.S., even though Walmart says they would get rid of guns in stores, they've still been sold, so you have plenty of options to loot them. Option 1, hope your neighbor's a gun nut. If he does and he dies of natural causes, loot his guns. Loot the local sporting goods store. We have 2 near us. They sell guns. In the apocalypse, just chuck a rock through the window, or better yet, have someone else do it for you. Someone else break in already. Now, you're probably going to have to fight people for these weapons, but since guns can cost several $1,000s, and they're one of the biggest single expenditures for an apocalypse, you might rather want to have 100 cans of food or more instead of one of these. So, again, your best bet is to steal some things in the apocalypse. Now, in terms of big-ticket expenditures, the only things more expensive are solar panel system, $10,000 in the batteries, or a bug-out vehicle, several tens of thousands of dollars. But you're better off with the solar system. So, let's say you go there and someone else has already stolen most of the guns. Fortunately, you see their car parked in the parking lot unattended. Simply smash their back windshield, grab the guns from the trunk, and leave. If they start shooting at you, pop them back with the actual gun. Or better yet, steal the car itself. Now you've got a potentially better bug-out vehicle. But, again, you're better off not being near these areas with supply looting, but if you have to, it's well worth doing. Again, some weapons are simply impractical. Flamethrower weighs 75 pounds, and when you try and fire it like a gun, you fall over and burn yourself alive. And that's been reported to happen. So you're going to want the biggest gun possible, but you're going to want something that you can actually use. So your best bet in this case is almost certainly a hunting rifle. They're very, very common in the US. 37% of the population of the US actually owns a firearm. Now, that's technically down from 43%, but it's been holding steady for the past 20 years, and a lot of that, and it's actually more people because of population growth. So hunting rifles shouldn't be that hard to find, especially in the middle of the country. There's a lot of people with them. Now, next, let's talk about bows and arrows. Now, in most instances, you simply don't want to make one on your own, and it's not worth the effort, even if you're a skilled carpenter. Only skilled carpenters can actually make one that can shoot it a reasonable distance, and in which case you're better off not wasting your effort. The reason being is you can loot one from your local sporting goods store, the one made out of carbon fiber with metal arrows used for bow hunting. It's lighter, it's easier to use, and it shoots farther, so you're better off just not wasting the effort. Most instances would say that it's good for when you don't want to announce your presence to looters and bandits. For example, using gunshots. Other people say that you're better off getting a silencer, but silencers are hard to find for the simple reason a lot of them are used in mafia hits and as a result are restricted. Now, in the apocalypse, I don't care where you're living. In the suburbs, you'll probably hear the sound of gunfire constantly, and you'll have to deal with gangs. But you're not going to have to, but the idea that you'll have to deal with 50 gang members bursting into your house all armed with AK-47s is almost certainly fallacious. If only because a lot of these gangs will be formed ad hoc. Stuff like religious and ethnic groups and socioeconomic classes, like a group of Hindu shopkeepers from India agree to protect their 7-Elevens with guns. Now, so a lot of these will have a lot of new members, and a lot of criminals will survive and die, and there'll be a problem. But your main bet is going to be these new gangs, because they'll be dangerous. They'll want to, for example, show their dominance. They'll want to show the existing gangs that, hey, we are serious contenders. But a lot of them will also suffer from the same problem. With a lot of new gang members, any weapons you have illegally stored or so on will just not be enough, and you might not be able to trust them. So your best bet is to give them slightly lesser weapons, stuff like hunting knives and so on and so on. So you can take those out with a shot. Again, so you might want an AK-47 if just for gangs, and also because it looks cool, but beware that you don't shoot yourself in the process. For example, Chicago, you might have the Crips and Bloods fight a bloody, inconclusive turf war over controlling all the resources and people within the north side versus the south side. And honestly, if there's gunshots all around, gang members won't know it was you who shot someone, because you can't. If, for example, it sounds like a street in Baghdad all the time, you won't be able to tell an additional one shot, and it's honestly well worth the risk. Again, you don't want to bring a lesser weapon when you need a better weapon. So your best bet, again, is... And another thing that actually might come in handy, throwing knives. Now, conventional wisdom suggests it's a waste of time because it takes a year to actually learn how to do it properly. But provided you stockpile enough of them, it serves as a median, right? With a Ka-Bar knife, it's 12 inches, right? You have to get close enough to kill the person with it. With a gun, you can be pretty far away. Same with a bow. But what if you need to take someone out 3 to 5 feet away? Or immobilize them. You grab you throw the throwing knife toward the top of their shirt and pin them to the wall. Also, theoretically speaking, you have a renewable source of knives. Just provide that at the end of the fight, once you kill the people, you just get your knives back. So yeah, those are my thoughts on weapons in the apocalypse. And of course, I got my handy 18-inch machete. Because why the fuck not? This is America, bitch. So like, comment, and subscribe if you've not done so. This is Sean Hartnett saying, hope you survive the apocalypse. Bye.